All right, I just thought up one more logic chain to describe situations and so on. Now, or two more logic chains, and I have some extra fleshing out of one of my previous video statements and so on, and I'll just mention the full thing because I glossed over it in a video about multiple topics and so on, so I'll get into depth on this one, but it's reasonably short, I think. Okay, so Person A takes money from Person B and Person C. Person B is a regular working taxpayer. Person C is a business owner and richer than average. Person A is the government or state or politician. Person C gives to Person A directly, the politician, so that Person A, the state, takes less money from Person C as an official functionary of the overall ABC group as a whole representative. That's called tax loopholes, basically. Another version of this is Person C gives a bunch of money to Person A to convince Person A to take from Person B to give to Person C. That's another way of laundering money through taxation is theft. Anyways, it's really simple. What can I say? It's all corrupt. It's lobbying. Those two examples are lobbying, basically, for tax loopholes or for insider trading, favorable regulation for that particular one business or something like that, basically. Or if Person B is in competition on a sort of equal or a smaller level in the same industry, then Person C paying Person A to sabotage Person B or take from them, but not Person C, forms what's called a competitive advantage, which allows Person C to essentially form a monopoly so that Person B cannot compete, either because the law forbids him to or because the laws as written favor Person C over B to the point, de facto, to the point that Person B can no longer do that business, and Person C becomes the only one, which means they can jack up the prices for D, E, F, G, all the end of the alphabet other people. Okay, now, moving on to another topic that I brought up earlier in one of my videos, because I've literally making these videos like within the space of an hour and like thinking up new parts to them and so on, because that's how I work. So sorry if these videos are a little repetitive in some ways and so on, but I'm trying to, and not so long or whatever, but like it's important stuff, and I want you to check out my previous videos if you check this one out and so on. Now, to flesh out the previous thing, another thing that I wanted to mention that I brought up earlier a little bit is that leftists have a tough time understanding the idea that someone who taking stuff from someone lots of the time makes them want to go away to somewhere where you cannot take from them. And then when you tell them that, their primary or main default setting is to say, we're just going to make sure there's nowhere for them to go that we have to stop taking from them. In other words, take over the world. That's the globalists and wokists and leftists. When that becomes known as impossible, taking over the world is impossible, they default into two other versions, and I'm not sure which one of these is the one they pick first most often, or whatever, but I'll give an example of each of these and so on. Now, taking over the world is Marx's workers of the world unite. And as an example of how that would play out in the actual non-logic chain, pure logic chain rhetoric. And then the other two possible answers is, and we see this sometimes right now, is I'm going to take all their stuff before they leave, which is something people say more specifically and reasonably similarly to what I just said, and so on. And then the secondary, the other effect that's on the same level basically is I'm going to stop them from leaving so I can keep taking from them. And that example is basically the Berlin Wall. So that's basically me explaining over the last 3 to 4 videos at most, the totality of leftist thought and behavior in reasonably simple logic. And basically, once you recognize the gist of it, it's so simple, it's mind-blowingly easy, and so on. And what I will say is, I don't know for sure if the way I'm describing it is because I stutter and I repeat myself and I kind of do that, if it's understandable to the average person necessarily, but it's reasonably simple, I'm pretty sure, to describe the entire situation that seems so complicated compared to my videos describing it. And one of the things, and I'm not saying if you don't understand it, you're a leftist, but one of the things is leftists have trouble understanding this basic logic, because I literally just tried to explain it to a leftist, and he got mind blown at person A giving to person B from person A. He got mind blown by that. He's like, oh, could you repeat that? I don't understand it. So there's a reason leftists are dumb, or there's a reason dumb people are leftists. And that's one of the reasons why the super poor people who are on the streets are often socialists, and so on. And why the reparations and free gives me that and so on tend to be low IQ people as well, and why Thomas Sowell is a black man who is intelligent and also against socialism. So it's not just black or white people that do either or, it's intelligent or dumb people that do either or for the most part, except those who are in the person A position for taking from person B typically, or scheming with person C to take person B's wealth for themselves together. And my descriptions of the logic chains is to simplify to the barest bones the 4 to 5 to 6 versions of the logic that these systems operate on, so that anyone who can memorize these logic chains knows exactly what's going on at any given time and can spread the word and share it to anyone else that can understand it. And my hope is that I've described it simply enough that it will catch on and spread like wildfire, so that everyone can talk about it who is remotely smart. And if you don't understand it, don't worry. I don't think you're necessarily stupid, because I wasn't entirely... I'm not sure if it's entirely clear, but if you go back and watch it again, go back and watch it again, go back and watch it again, and memorize the logic chains and so on, and they get stuck in your head, then you can probably categorize or diagnose any given situation of governmental programs and socialism and so on and so on. And one last thing is, when person A profits off of taking from person B, even to give to person C, there's always an incentive to take more from person B, for person A to take more from person B for person A's well-being and getting more. And he might give person C even less, or he might give person C even more than if at the beginning. But the point is, that's why states and statism and socialism grow in the government in size and power to dysfunctional levels. That's why they do it, because there's always an incentive to take more from the taxpayer for one's own benefit, even if you're supposedly doing it for the benefit of the poor and needy person C. So yeah,